Says I'm live. It's not crashing. That's a bonus. I've just been trying to get the stream up and rolling. Hopefully people work out where we are reasonably quickly. Let me see if I can just send a message on the old stream as well. YouTuber, go to your channel. Your fine channel, my fine channel. Here it is. And let's go to content and live. What fun. Okie dokie. Go in here. Go to there. Send message. View link. Live on another link now. Go there. Yes, folks. All right, good. So people should work out that we're over there and not here pretty soon. Yes, right, so we have some people that have worked it out that we're here. Good, right, do come in everybody. Plenty of room down the back of class for you latecomers. Do spit out that gum, sit up straight, stop throwing paper darts, pay attention. Yes, sorry about the carry-on this morning. Most unprofessional from the Meat Militia. Well, not really from the Meat Militia, it was from that other platform. It's failed, it's completely shit itself. It's decided that it would rather not allow me to have a live stream, so I tried to start the stream about 3 or 4 times, and it shit itself every single time. Snafu was what happened. Very snafu. Anyway, the main reason you're all here is because you're all fascinated to find out who my mystery secret guest presenter for the week is, aren't you? Yes, you are. And if you're not, then why aren't you? Because you ought to be. The reason you ought to be is because my guest presenter today is a gentleman well known to many of you, I suspect. He's used to be a household occurrence, a weekly institution, at least weekly it was anyway. Several years ago, he disappeared from the YouTubes and hasn't been really seen hide nor hear of since. I've managed to convince him to show up for us today and do some guest presenting. Apparently, he's been watching in the background. He knows what's been going on, and he's able to step straight back in as if he's never been anywhere. I believe it, because he's a consummate professional. We have missed him. We've missed him a great deal, so we know it's a him. I've given it away. I haven't given away his identity, but I think I will now. Welcome to the stream for the first time in about 2 years online. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. DrewMorg. How are you, son?
Everybody. How's it going?
Hey, wow. Good to see you.
We still got the guns in case everybody's wondering.
Oh, yes, look at those. Look at those. Impressive. Right, Drew, first question, of course. Where the purple fuck have you been? What's been happening? Tell us about the last 2 years.
Last 2 years, wow. I had to get my financial life together in the IRL, in real life world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I took like a 5-year hiatus from working real jobs, if you want to call them that. I mean, I did a little Uber when I was in Hawaii. I tried to launch my vegan dating app when I was vegan at the time. And I could not get that thing to make me some income, even though I had 10,000 people watching this thing or on this thing. Mm-hmm. And so I did YouTube. You know, I love YouTube. I had a big vendetta, if you want to call it that, some anger that I had to work through and share with the audience regarding my journeys as a vegan and how, you know, incorrect that way of eating was. And I also wanted to share my journey out of it and hopefully inspire people who were thinking of going vegan or were vegan and wanted to break free of that, because I was around so many people in Hawaii that were doing it the right way. As all, you know, we know the famous saying, you didn't do it right, but in reality, more people do it right than these people want to admit. The people that I was around were very serious about it. They wanted to be lifelong vegans just as myself. Even to the point where, like I said, I made a vegan dating app. I invested about $15 $1,000 in that at least, and tons of time. And, it didn't work out, but that's fine. So when I came back to California, I had to figure out money. Obviously, I can't live for free forever. And then COVID hit. Luckily, I got a good paying job and whatnot. And so now I can speak freely. I can say whatever I want. Nobody can cancel me. I can make $0 from YouTube. I can come back for free if I want to, and I'll still be making money because I work a full-time job. So nobody can say nothing anymore.
Awesome.
So that's
it's
the last 2 years.
Always good to have some freedom, isn't it?
Yes.
I still haven't quite got to that point, Drew, where I can walk away from the YouTubes. I really wish I could because, well, we all know that they're not real helpful to us.
No.
Us creators. In fact, the level of respect they have for us is less than zero. Nothing's changed in the last 2 years since you've been away from it.
I would imagine it's gotten worse.
Well, if anything, I was just going to say, if anything, it's gotten worse. There are things we cannot talk about. We cannot mention the thing. We can't mention that thing. It's not allowable. The other thing we can't do anymore, Drew, is actually mention anybody's appearance in any way. Because apparently
I saw you saying that in a
bullying
video.
and harassment. Yes, apparently. So if you look at an emaciated, skeletal, unhealthy vegan and say, goodness me, this spade looks rather like a spade, then that's harassment and bullying somehow. Even though bullying in the dictionary requires that you have some power over the person who you are supposedly bullying. And I don't so much. So anyway, there we go. Will Yellow Ted be making an appearance today? Of course he will. Hello, there he is. Everybody, you all thought it was going to be Yellow Ted that was going to be the guest presenter, didn't you? Ha! More fool you. Drew is much better behaved than Ted is online in general. All right.
We can keep it as PC as we need to, as correct as we need to have it. But we're still going to get our message across, aren't we, Bart?
Oh, yes, you bet. Today's live stream is brought to you by our kind sponsors, Fruit and Honey. No, It isn't. So there's been a bit going on this week, as you've probably seen, Drew. You mentioned in a message yesterday, I think it was, that you'd been keeping up with the fruit and honey wars. What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like Paul, Paul is who we're talking about here, and we're not saying anything bad about Paul. He is clearly an intelligent individual, at least from my perspective. He is an intelligent individual. He puts a lot of time into the research and studies, which me personally, one of my things that I always said all along was that I don't believe in really going all in on the studies, because depending on which team you're on, you're going to find somebody to agree with your point of view via study or disagree with your point of view via study. So the study wars only go so far. What really matters is once people start utilizing those assumptions or whatever the studies are trying to say, once they are put into practice, what really matters here. And I think we've seen Paul consume up to 400 grams of carbohydrate a day, I believe, via fruit and honey. And so I'm just, as you've mentioned many times, his activity levels allow him to do this. Another person that comes to mind that is able to get away with extreme amounts of carbohydrate intake would be our friend Durian Ryder. And I saw the same thing. These people, I don't know. It's weird with Paul because he's clearly a different level than Durian Ryder, as much as I love our buddy Durian Ryder. But Paul, the way that he says it is like, I'm doing this, but I'm not gaining weight. It's like, well, why are we always boiling the health topic down and the food topic down to weight gain and weight loss? Like, that's so elementary in the grand scheme of things. Like, let's talk about the arterial health. Let's talk about your aging process. Let's talk about how much energy you have. Let's talk about how much muscle mass you're able to gain or retain. These are much different than just talking about fat gain and fat loss. Those are quite elementary, in my opinion. And so you have a guy like Paul who's clearly done a lot of research and he knows what he's talking about from a wide view perspective. But he's sitting there saying, well, my anecdote tells me that I can not gain weight doing this. You guys can see it, right? And then people are like, yeah, I guess you're right, Paul. I guess you're not gaining weight. You're right. Maybe I can do it too. But it's like the reality is most people are sitting behind a computer screen 12 to 14 hours a day. They're not exercising like Paul. They're not putting in that kind of work, just even movement in general. And that's okay. Not everybody has to be some triathlete wannabe or, out in the sun every single day, but they should also know the limitations of that, where again, maybe Paul isn't putting on fat, but let's talk about the arterial health. Let's talk about those other markers we're talking about. And we really don't know because he's only been doing this for 6 to 12 months, from what I gather, in the extremities that he's doing it. And it's weird he's making these assumptions because, he spent the time with the Hods in Africa. And I've even been doing a little research on that because he says, oh, well, every hunt that they would do, they would go get honey first. And I've seen them do this in other YouTubers' videos and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, well, they gather honey and then they go do this big hunt. But people were even saying that honey is not even available year-round for them. So if he's trying to make that sound like something that is a year-round resource, I don't think that's accurate. They're getting maybe 1 or 2 servings, a couple handfuls where they're all sharing one little honeycomb, I guess you would call it, and they're all breaking it off and they're eating it. Okay, cool. That's a few hundred calories of honey each. Whereas he's got the jars of honey lined up in his pantry ready to go, locally sourced though. And it's like, okay, well, we're talking about 2 different things here. Again, weight gain is not the whole picture. Weight loss is not the whole picture. I don't come to this from the weight gain or weight loss perspective. I'm clearly a pretty lean guy. I've always had trouble putting weight on. So for me, I'm not even concerned with the weight gain aspect of any of this. I'm way more concerned with the muscle mass aspect, the how do I feel throughout the day, my digestion. Number one, that's always been number one for me, digestion. All this honey and fruit, I can remember, and I can tell you this, there were times where I had pure fruit meals as a vegan when I was vegan, and I would eat, let's say, just 8 peaches from the local market that were just deliciously juicy, in season, wonderful peaches. And those things within 20 minutes, and I'm not saying that every meal did this, but sometimes it would give me diarrhea right off the bat like that. They would irritate my stomach so quickly that I would have to go get rid of that material that I just all this sugar that I took down. And I don't know whether that's a factor of the fructose or some gut reaction there or the peel of the fruit or whatever it is. But the bottom line is you just can't say, oh, well, sugar is completely harmless. There's no reaction to people. And on top of that, you're not going to gain weight. That's just sounds like nonsense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Have to agree with pretty much all of that as usual, Drew. Really good. I did have to ask you though, did you feel bullied there? Someone mentioning your grey hair? Because we mentioned someone's appearance here. And,
no, we're okay. We're okay.
All right, all right. You say you're not going to complain about the bullying? I can have that person taken out the back and
no, it's fine. It's fine. We're still handsome. We're still good looking. It's perfectly fine, guys. We're gonna make it. It's okay.
Drew, you have hair at all?
I do.
That's
I did it. I did it for you as well. I just got a haircut today for this stream. I had to be presentable. You guys.
There you go. All right, just for us. All right, so there we have it. Right, what's happening in the chat here? Troy, here's one thing about that. Paul acting like he has some benefit to do with what he's doing. Joke's on him. I hate fruit and I don't like honey. Might as well just eat. Well, exactly. I mean, sugar is sugar, isn't it, Troy? That's what it is. And saying, this sugar comes in some magical entity called a whole food matrix, and that therefore makes it innocuous somehow. It's magics. This is the kind of propaganda that, I wish I could come up with instead of just telling people the facts and the science and things.
Well, Bart, I want to interject here. One of your best videos, actually, it's an old one. You talked about how even what people think is a fact at this point is that fiber slows down. I think it's the I don't know, blood sugar increase or something like that. You'd probably be able to jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but it slows down the insulin spike or something like this. And in reality, as you stated, that like even the difference between white rice and even like a whole fruit is really not that much different, and we have no way to actually measure that and prove it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the GI scale thing.
The GI scale, yes, exactly.
Yeah, so for those that haven't heard of it, I'm sure you have heard of it, the GI scale is the scale that's applied to carbohydrates that so-called tells you how quickly that particular carbohydrate will dump sugar into your bloodstream. The problem is the statistical signal to noise ratio is so vast that whatever number you put on the average response is meaningless, because my response to 1 teaspoon of table sugar will be very different from Drew's, will be very different from Harley Johnson's, will be very different from Paul Saladino's, very, very different. And so we can't say a spoon of sugar has this particular GI or that. And then even if you say, well, what about it just as a marker between different foods for one given individual? Well, I could eat the same spoon of sugar 5 or 6 days in a row and get a totally different result 5 or 6 days in a row as well, just within my own measurement. So the whole idea of the GI scale is a propaganda. It's one of these magic things that they throw out there that says, oh, this makes some carbs good and some carbs bad, in the same way that they magically somehow indicate that some sorts of cholesterol are good and others are bad, even though there is only one sort of cholesterol, and only one, for example. So the propaganda is strong on the dark side of the force, and also their presentation skills are right up there, aren't they, Drew? I mean, they've got characters doing things like going, you know, if you don't eat your fruits and vegetables, you might die. And, you know.
That's how they get you. I mean, the vegans are so far behind on this. It's crazy. Like, I'll still get comments on my videos from 2-3 years ago, people talking about stuff we figured out years ago. Like, nobody is worried about yeah, it's a weird thing. And when people, again, they bring up the studies, they have these doctors that pose as these credible sources. It's tough. And if you're just meaning to do well, you go, hey, I can get healthy eating this way. Lots of carbohydrates, lower red meat. I've always heard that my whole life. Okay, that makes sense. This vegan doctor's telling me that it's right, and that, you know, he's a cardiologist. That impresses me. He's a cardiologist. He's taken cholesterol chunks out of people's arteries, and he can show pictures of it. Okay, that's interesting. How can he be wrong here? He's seeing the effects of the red meat in people's diet, but that's with just such a tiny little zoom in of it. Yeah, that might be a batch of hardened cholesterol that got stuck in somebody's artery that needs to be removed. But how did it get there? And the easy assumption is to say, okay, well, it's just from intaking cholesterol. Done. Simple, right? No. As you know, if you watch Bart at all, he explains that the sugar is the thing doing the damage. The cholesterol comes to repair that damage. Now you got this calcification, and basically the artery clogs up with that cholesterol. There's too many steps for a vegan to understand and to fathom that there's actually a root cause analysis here, and the root cause is actually the sugar. For many reasons, as we talked about, it can lead to the weight gain. It can keep you addicted to carbs, and I would like to talk more on that because I'm no perfect angel, Bart. I've been eating fast food. Guys, I've been eating Jack in the Box. I've been eating full curly fries from Jack in the Box, milkshakes. I've had it all over the past couple of years, all right? And let me tell you, it only gets worse. Until you have tried a good diet, aka it's pretty clear to me it's carnivore or very close to it is what I can ascertain here, because I feel the best on it. I digest the best on it. My stomach is picky on everything that I consume. So I'm one of those people that I don't know if I need to be, meat and water, but I have to be kind of close to it. And I've even to the point where, I love my caffeine. I love my coffee, my energy drinks. I used to drink energy drinks on stream as a joke. And man, I have to stop it because it's really irritating my guts. And if you're willing to quit caffeine, that's telling you something, that your body is really rejecting this stuff. And I think a lot of vegans, in order to just stay sort of under the religious cult, they will accept the poor health because they think that they're doing something good for the animals and the environment, when in fact they're not. But that's a whole different topic. The vegans are like their own thing, really.
Yeah. And nothing much changes there, even when you completely debunk, disprove, and point to their charlatanism, their ideology, their theology, their spin doctrine, their lies, all of that. You'll see they'll make another video and post another video the next day saying the same ridiculous thing again. It's incredible, unbelievable. Just keep saying the same thing again and again. It's like a party political, well, it is a party political broadcast, isn't it? It's a theology. Let's deal with Rachel's question here, Drew. What do you think?
My doctor was concerned about me starting keto 12 weeks ago and made it clear I could have too many ketones, which is toxic. Day 14 of carnivore. Should I be worried about these toxins? I'm not your doctor. I'm not even a scientist. What I would say is, from all of the research and the way that I feel eating this way, I think you should be guided by your own body, number one. But in regards to the whole ketone thing, I would watch. I'm sure Bart's got plenty of information on this, but Anthony Chaffee has really been hammering this lately, arguing that the ketogenic state is the primary metabolic function of the human body. And why? He talks about, we wouldn't be here through the ice ages period if that wasn't the case, because let's take the opposite of that. Let's take a fully carb loading type person who's a vegan, right? Like somebody who only consumes carbohydrates and maybe a little bit of protein. We haven't really seen generations of vegans yet. So that is yet to be proven if that's even a sustainable, or if you can even make generational kids that way, without disease and without like mental disorders and stuff like that. And he has said straight up that there's a higher case of autism in vegan children, other genetic factors there, other birth defects that go in with that. And so, yeah, I think that if you had to choose one, the ketogenic state certainly makes more sense. And yeah, I don't know about these toxins that you're releasing. I would just say that the brain works very well in ketones. I mean, if you've ever woken up after being for sure in a ketogenic state, you wake up the next morning and just go about your day, your mind is very clear. So I don't understand. I don't really understand what he's saying. I think he just doesn't fully understand what's going on here.
Excellent. Very good. I would agree entirely with Vicky. And for those that haven't seen it, I did a very fun interview with Vicky just last week, I think it was. It's on my Fine channel if you'd like to go and have a look after the live stream, where Vicky's telling her story about becoming ketogenic and what she went through and what she experienced and stuff. Well worth a look. I would like to agree with her comments entirely. I would, in that situation, without hesitation, I would drop that doctor on their backside. You are fired. Transfer my records. Do that today. This is a person you should not be taking medical advice from. Ketones are absolutely non-toxic at all physiological levels in the human body. The only way you are ever going to get a problem with ketones of any kind is to do with acidity, and it's not toxicity, it's acidity, and it will only occur if you have completely uncontrolled type 1 diabetes for probably weeks on end, actually, to achieve this ketoacidosis that they talk about. This is an ignoramus. This is not someone that you should be taking medical advice from on any issue of your health. Get that doctor sacked off, and get them sacked off today. It's very, very important as a community that we start to take our control and power back, and don't let these idiots get away with this. They have to be sent the message. Transfer my records is your response to that. Super chat from Bruce. Awesome. Thank you very much for the greenback dollars. Appreciate those very much. They keep the lights on. They keep the stream running. Unlike that other platform that failed completely today to keep the stream running. Well done, that other platform. Second failure in 2 weeks for you. I think you've just about done your dash, frankly. Unacceptable. Dear oh dear. What a shame. Never mind. We move on, don't we, Drew?
Move on.
Maybe I should just disappear for 2 years and then come back suddenly from the blue. so that half the people, because I mean my subscriber base has probably doubled since last time we spoke.
At least you've blown up.
Yeah, so half my people are going, Drew, fuck me, it's Drew. And the other half are going, who the fuck is Drew?
Yeah.
So,
that's to be expected. Short memory on YouTube.
Yes. Alice. Who the fuck is Alice?
Another point I wanted to make too, to all my friends out there, those who recognize me and those who don't, I consider myself more of a test subject. I enjoy presenting. I enjoy doing the YouTube personality presenter thing, interviewing people, but that's mostly from a selfish standpoint. I want the information from them. I just happen to be broadcasting it to the world, and I use my platform to get those people on my show. People like Bart, who could explain to me these crazy concepts that I would never be able to ask out in the real world. Like, where am I going to find a Bart K out in the streets? It's not going to happen. You're not going to meet that kind of a person every day. So luckily YouTube was able to bring people together, and I cataloged that stuff by putting it on my channel. But at the end of the day, I talked to everybody who I wanted to talk to, and I had the information. And at that point, it was just time for me to run with it, experience the different dietary changes myself, and then maybe report back at some point in time. And I think at this point, 2 years down the line, going way off the diet, going back to the diet, we're talking carnivore here. I think that I do have some valuable new stuff to add. And that's why I have been returning to this way of eating. And that's why I wanted to jump back on here with Bart as soon as I could and share those type of findings with people, you know, especially because there's been a shift in the way that people are talking about carnivore lately. We've got more doctors on the carnivore side. Like I said, Anthony Chafee, guys like this who are really embodying those traits of the carnivore lifestyle. They've been doing it really long term. It's very hard to argue with their results and their scientific evidence. And, you know, I'm also trying to figure out the best ways to do this as well. You know, I'm not 100% happy with the foods that I'm currently eating to make it carnivore. So, you know, maybe Bart can add in on some of those, or, you know, add his piece on some of those. I wanted to talk some macros with you today too, Bart, if we can do that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm at your disposal, Drew. You telling me what you want to talk about and we'll do it. And also in the background in the chat there, boys and girls, a couple of things. Number one, make sure you hit the like button, because the single largest cause of metabolic dysfunction is failure to hit the like button. And so you need to get that done. And also do feel free to post your questions either for myself as usual or for my honorary guest presenter today, Dr. Drew Morg. We'll call him Dr. Drew Morg because anybody can be a doctor now. All you have to do is, well, Greta's a doctor. Certificate. Well, you don't even need that. Greta's a doctor. Dr. Greta. So, you know, why not? At one point on my Discord channel, everyone had compulsory. Everyone was doctor. Everyone. It was just funny as hell. And it still carries on to this day on the Discord, actually. Quite a few things tend to carry on a lot longer on Discord than they would elsewhere. Anyway, tell us, before we get into some of that stuff, do a plug on all your various social media and things. Tell us where to find your stuff, Drew, so that everybody knows where you've been hiding and stuff.
Yeah, I'm still on YouTube. I mean, I still have my channel up, at DrewMorg, as I spell it in here. I think it should be up on the screen. I never took a single video down. I left everything up. I wanted that stuff to be there, including my early vegan days. I think that's why some people trusted me more than others, is because I cataloged accurately my vegan experience. I didn't make a ton of videos as a vegan, but I made a few, and I was very honest about my experience. I did a 1-year vegan review when this was like 6-7 years ago. I did this video, one of my first videos for YouTube, and it was a 1-year vegan review. I was very thorough in this thing, and I talked about how my digestion wasn't really better even after a year, you know. And so I was able to pull from that evidence. Like, nobody could really stick me on anything, because I said it back in the day. Like, I was not one of those vegans that just said everything's perfect. Oh my God, sunshine and rainbows. Everything has gotten better. And it's hard to talk your way out of that 2 years later when you quit and you go, oh yeah, the whole thing was terrible. And then you go, and then people are like, well, what do you mean? You were saying the whole time that it was great. So what's up? And then luckily I kept it 100% in those early videos. And so, yeah, you can find all that stuff on there. I made carnivore experiment videos after I left veganism. I ate a huge plate of ground beef and eggs to break my vegan fast. I was vegan for 4.5 years. I jumped on the carnivore for 40 days immediately, based on Sean Baker's testimonials on Joe Rogan and stuff like that. I found out about him about, what was it, maybe 3.5 years ago at this point. And then I went straight over, and yeah, definitely life-changing. I mean, I would never want anybody to go vegan at this point with the amount of information we have. There's just no excuse for that. So, yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Lukey, in the background there, for the links there to the Discord and to Drew's fine YouTube channel. Are you still do you have any kind of audience on some of these other social media platforms? You mentioned one earlier that you've been doing a bit of, and
no, I haven't at all. I've been still talking to people through comments. People will watch old videos. People love your video with Durian Ryder. If you guys want to see Bart K talk to Durian Ryder, I mean, that's an epic video. You guys just got to go watch that. I hosted a good roundtable sort of interview format where I was asking specific questions to these guys, and trying to keep these guys from cutting each other at the table was very tough. So, you know, you've got all the antics there, and it's one of the most popular videos that people still watch to this day, vegan and non-vegan. People love that video. Yeah. So
I do have to say, on that video, on that day, I actually think I could have done, I mean, I thought I did okay, and we certainly made some good inroads into Durian Ryder's absolute nonsense, his total lack of scientific acumen or understanding of anything he's talking about. But his tactic was, rather than actually to deal with that stuff, which he was getting embarrassed on at the time, his tactic was to try and get under my skin and piss me off so that I'd lose my temper.
100%.
And he managed it. He did it. He did it expertly. So if there's anything that you could say, well, Durian does well, it's behaving in such a manner that makes you want to punch him in the face.
And that's, he's
so
an
that was
expert.
his tactic. So it was, you know, looking back on it now, you know, I wish that I had have remained more sanguine at the time and just stayed on the science, but he sucked me into his kind of brawl technique. So I thought, well, you know, fuck it, I'll do it. I probably would do it differently on another occasion, because it probably could have been more effective than it was even. But anyway, it was good fun.
Yep.
Almost as much fun as the complete waste of time discussion with the witch from Chorley was. She had nothing of any value to offer anybody. Oh, no, she did have some anecdotes there, Drew. Some anecdotes she had. But that was about the size of that. She's disappeared pretty much these days from the nutrition side of things. Anyway, she's still got a channel if anyone cares, talking about the psychology of mass murders or some bloody thing, I think.
She's transitioned.
Yes.
Probably not even vegan anymore.
Well, yes, she's transhuman, I would imagine. Probably always was, but there you go. All right. Did you see my chat I had recently with John Venus?
No, I did not.
Okay, it's not currently on my channel. It's going to go back up on my channel. It's just that very recently I had an issue with community standards with the YouTube folks, and I had to actually take down all my content, absolutely, in order to safeguard the channel, because they started applying strikes randomly to old videos that have been up without a problem for some of them, you know, over a year.
Huh.
It was a concerted attack, so I had to take down absolutely everything because I didn't know what was safe and what wasn't safe. And so I'm now progressively and steadily putting things back. So the John Venus discussion will go back up.
Nice.
He's basically kicked veganism completely to the curb and is now actually not only pretty much carnivore, but he's out there hunting.
I want to do some hunting myself as well.
In Scandinavia. Yeah, me too. It seems like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a thing to do. There we go. Yes, indeed. Disgraceful. Disgrace to witches, isn't she? Wasn't she? Tracy, indeed. Yes. All right.
Bart, I want to ask you something.
Absolutely, of course.
So, like I said, you know, regarding these macros, and I know people have tried to put you in a corner and ask you, you know, macro questions, and and from what I gather, you know, your answer is usually, well, it depends on your activity level and depends on you, which is fair, which is true.
Yeah.
But what do you think about people lately? So when Carnivore first started to really gain traction, I would say, before Saladino was eating the honey and the fruits, we're talking Sean Baker, and Sean Baker has been very consistent from start to finish, that's why I really like his message. Obviously, if something stands the test of time, then they were probably right all along. You know what I mean? And Chafee tends to agree with this as well. And they just focus on muscle meats. They're not really concerned with the protein to fat ratio at all. But there are other people who are coming out and starting to say that they prefer a higher fat carnivore type diet. So we're already talking about no plants here. So just we're not talking about a mixed macro diet. We're just talking about strictly the relationship between protein and fat. And I don't know if you watch any of the snake diet guy, Cole Robinson.
Yeah.
But he's been really, really harping on this lately. It's been his new thing for the past month, is full ketogenic diet where you never leave ketosis, and you accomplish this by eating a 15% protein maximum. And he specifically says to lean bulk this way and to consume 4,000 calories, 8,000 milligrams of sodium, 5,000 milligrams of potassium. What are your thoughts on this? And, you know, this is for somebody who's trying to put on muscle mass and doesn't even mind to gain some weight. So what do you think about this?
Yeah. Okay. So in general, obviously there is some individual variability that's just inherent between different people as to what's ideal for you. it's not a wide variation because we've all basically got the same genes to all intents and purposes. We're all human beings. Pretty much when people say one size doesn't fit all, not really true. It does in terms of that pretty much. The ideal macronutrient ratio seems to be around about 50-50, protein and fat, assuming that both the protein and the fat are of good quality and sourced well. And there seems to be, in my experience, around about a 5, maybe 7% swing away from 50 in favour of either fat or protein per the individual, which is compounded only very slightly by activity levels and goals like, okay, you want to get into some hypertrophy training, you want to put some muscle mass on. Does that mean you need to eat a whack more protein? Not necessarily, because when you think about it, how much protein would you put on every day that you're muscle building? It's very, very little. Most of your protein goes into maintaining the proteins that you already have. There's quite a turnover, actually. The additional protein that goes on every day of muscle building, not a huge amount. Plus, of course, you need to also understand that you need a certain level of protein in order to ensure that you don't have that insulin issue that Mr. Saladino apparently had. So there is that. So I always sort of, when I'm counselling people, I say, look, we're going to aim for 50-50 in terms of the macro so-called caloric content. We'll get to calories another day. I know I've been talking about that quite a bit of late. And we adjust from there, n equals 1, and you'll find a sweet spot. You'll dial in a sweet spot for yourself. Listen to your body, listen to your cravings in terms of meat and fat anyway. Ignore those other cravings, those unhelpful ones, pretty much, and you'll find the spot. One of the hugest problems for me, Drew, is that people have this obsession with overcomplicating the whole thing, making everything far more complex than it is. And, at the end of the day, if this wasn't simple, straightforward, and pretty much driven by our instincts, we wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. 350,000 years ago, when humans first started walking the earth, you didn't see them entering their macros into some computer program to find out whether they were a good boy that day or not.
Right.
That wasn't happening.
And I think that's where my issue with it comes from, is that when you just think of your natural desire for the food that you're going to consume, right? Obviously, it seems to be that everybody loves ribeye steaks, right? That's sort of like the number one across the board, I would say, on average. It's my favorite steak. And when I look at a ribeye,
picanha. Picanha is what you want for steak. Oh, my word.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to have to try this then.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Well, the whole point is that I don't see people pushing the muscle protein to the side and saying, oh, let me just go straight for that fat. Like, I don't see that being something that is done. Even when I watch these tribal people consume like a reindeer in the snow, where they just cut the thing open and they start drinking the blood and eating the meat and all this stuff like that. I don't see them going for the fat, If we were really evolutionarily designed to consume 85% fat, 15% protein, then wouldn't people need to be really, really going after that fat? Because it is quite difficult to get above a 50-50 ratio, as you said. It's quite difficult to get more fat than protein to that extent, to make it 85-15. That's very difficult. You're talking about eating suet on the regular every single day with a little ground beef on the side. I mean, that's tough to do. A ribeye steak is not even close to 85-15. It's maybe 50-50, if that.
Yeah, so, usually. Yeah. No, I think going much above, I would say, 57. So let's say 60, just for round numbers. Going much above 60 fat and much under 40 protein relatively. Mm. I think you're asking for a problem if you do that. Protein is very, very important. You need to keep your protein up to at least the 40% relatively level. And your total energy intake needs to be sufficient for your needs as well. And I think a lot of people fall a little bit short of that as well.
And as you said, we're trying to activate the insulin spike at least once per day, correct?
Yes.
With our meal, with our protein. And so guys like the snake diet guy who don't really understand this. They're saying,
or anything else.
Just stay in ketogenic state. That's all that matters, so that you
Yep.
can't gain fat. Again, going back to the very one-dimensional view of this entire dietary thing is the weight gain or the weight loss. Like, people are obsessed with that. Like, I that's something that I've never had to worry about. So I'm completely detached from it. I care way more about making myself live to 100 with good years under my belt without being crippled, and having a horrible, having my gallbladder removed and all this other stuff that people go through. I want to have a high quality of life. That's what I'm concerned with,
Yeah.
So to me, naturally speaking, like I said, 50-50 does sound more reasonable. I wouldn't even really have to try to go eat extra fats or extra whatever. I would just probably eat what I would naturally want. And I would probably land somewhere around 50-50 or,
Most people do. And it's
Yeah.
because your instincts are good and the signals that your body gives you as to what you crave are good in terms of fat and protein. Yeah. Interesting one there, Donald. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. In actual fact, the facts of the matter are as follows. It was not Nick Hubert's, whatever his name is. It was not Nick's challenge to me. I challenged him to a debate. So let's get that straight in the first instance. And it was not me that refused the challenge. Actually, it was Nick, and I have it in writing. So yes, I probably will make a response video. I have the entire email thread, and I can show you that what Nick has said there, if that's indeed what he did say, is entirely untrue. False. It is a lie. He ran away from me with shit in his pants, just like all these other clowns who then turn around and say, but Kay doesn't have the balls to debate us. No. All I did is say, here's what the rules are going to be. Otherwise,
Arcade loves a debate. What are these people
Of course,
talking
what are you
about?
talking about?
This is insane.
Any day of the week. The only thing I'll insist on is one or two pretty straightforward, pretty sensible rules, actually. What Nick wants to do is he's using exactly the same tactic that Avi Bitterman used, and that was he wanted to be able to bring as many references as he wanted to without any limitation on the number that he could present, and didn't want to send those to me in advance so I could have a look at them. To which I said, well, every time you present a paper, it's going to take half an hour to analyse that paper in detail to show people what's wrong with it. If this debate is going to be an hour and a half in length, that means you've got a maximum of 3 papers that you can present so that I can tear both those and you to pieces, Nick.
It's like a filibuster.
Exactly. So all he wants to do is have a citation war and cite as many things as he possibly can to establish his posit or his point or his moot. And so I said to him, more than happy, I've challenged you to a debate, more than happy for you to bring even 3 to 5 references to the table. No more than that, because we will not have time to go through them all. And I'm not just going to have you come on my channel so that you can mindlessly cite a bunch of things that don't support your claim, and demonstrably don't. It just takes some time to demonstrate that. Hence, we need some kind of limitation. Perfectly sensible. No, too much for Nick Herbert. He runs away with shit in his pants, just like his little mate Avi, who did exactly the same thing. Just like Richard Burgess, who did exactly the same thing. They're all mouth and no trousers, these boys.
Is that Dr. Avi? Is that who are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice text conversation before I ever left this this deal, and he was calling vegan protein powder a necessary health food.
Of course.
I have that in writing as well. So we've got the receipts from these people, Bart. It's embarrassing, you know what I mean? Like, to call a protein powder a health food is mind blowing to me. I mean, even the supplements, even like a organ supplement, for instance, to me that doesn't make any sense. Why would we need that if our diet was complete, right? What is the point of this?
Exactly.
So,
and also when you think about stuff like liver, for example, if you look at an animal and you take, okay, how much edible muscle meat is there on the animal? How much liver is there? You'll see that there's a ratio. Liver is not a huge proportion of the edible material on that animal. Even if you're not eating ears, noses, and assholes. Like, how did the last nose you ate taste, Paul, by the way? Anyway, that's for another day. The take-home message for me is that if you are going to eat liver, and you don't need to, but let's say you want to, that's fine with me, but why don't you eat liver in the proportion that it exists in the animal? Why would you chase after pounds and pounds and pounds of liver every week?
Yeah.
There is an idea that liver can cause problems, can cause toxic issues at higher levels. I invited Dr. Smith on my channel recently to tell us all about that, because I was under the impression that he was going to actually be able to back that up and give us the science behind it. On that day, for whatever reason, he wasn't on form. I don't know what it was really, but he just didn't actually get the job done at all for me. Nothing against Dr. Smith whatsoever. So I'll be remaking that video myself at some point when I've got the time to do it. Perhaps when less people are wrong on the interwebs, I might find some time. Because it's really slowing down, isn't it? People being wrong on the interwebs. There's less and less of it every week. No, there isn't. It's incredible. Join me next week, actually, by the way, because Cum Splatter's been wrong again on the interwebs. So I'm dealing with him again. You looked quizzical there, Drew. You don't know who Cum Splatter is?
I know, I'm unfamiliar with this.
Cyrus Kambata, otherwise known as Cum Splatter. He and a little mate of his called Robbie, who
yes, I know who those guys are, yeah.
Yeah, they run a little channel called Mastering Diabetes, where they tell people that the solution to their disordered metabolites, their disordered macronutrient capacities, the answer to their toxic levels of glucose in the blood is to pour more and more and more things down their neck every day of their stupid lives that will only make that worse. And so, yeah, he's wrong every single time he opens his ridiculous gob, and so there's more of that coming in the week to come, so stay tuned to the Fine channel and you'll find out how it was that comes.
How are these people even surviving doing this? Like, how, if
people are paying them.
I don't mean surviving like in on social media. I mean physically. Like, how are these guys? How are they not already developed all the way to type 1 diabetic in a matter of a year after blowing their pancreas out with all the excess fruits and stuff like that? Because I know how Robbie eats.
Well, they're both type 1 diabetics. They've both been so for
that's true. Yeah, they're both
over a decade. So both adult onset type 2 diabetics. Which is an autoimmune response to a toxic lifestyle. It's not encoded for in the genes. There's nothing in your genes or mine, Drew, that says, here's a message in the genes to blow the pancreas up. Because why in the purple fuck would we do that? Why would our genes have such an instruction in them? It's a dysfunction of the immune system, and it's a dysfunction which is caused by consuming toxic plant materials that cause it to occur, largely. It's incredible that people don't seem to be able to get their heads around that. Anyway.
Bart, what do you think about salt?
Yeah, salt is one of those things, isn't it, that seems to, again, polarize the community. There are people saying you must have lots of salt, you must add electrolytes. There are people saying... I'm more of a moderate in this regard. I'm more like, well... Again, you have good signals. If you crave salt, it means you need some. If you don't, it means you don't. Pretty much your body tells you and lets you know what it wants and needs. There are others who say, no, avoid salt at all costs. There are some people saying, do carnivore with no salt. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Okay, you might be getting some results from that in some way. I've yet to see anything that would convince me that that's necessarily a good idea. It's certainly not long-term anyway. Yeah, for me, again, it's about the instinct. It's about the message that your body gives you. It tells you what it wants. I fancy some salt. Well, perhaps you need some. Get it down you.
Right.
Sort of thing.
Well, you're familiar with Sverige, Goetius, this guy, right? This guy who eats a lot of raw meats and stuff like that. Who is also now drinking a bunch of fruit juices, which is bizarre.
Including those exuded by his girlfriend on a monthly basis, I'm told.
Okay. Well... Okay, this guy does eat raw testicles, cow testicles, and horse testicles. So I find that interesting too. Because I've personally eaten some raw animal foods, and I'm not saying there's people out there who don't genuinely like it, but I personally don't. I personally do not like the taste of these foods. a bite of raw ground beef to me is it's so bland, and it's kind of gamey, and it just doesn't really, maybe it's the quality that I'm getting, although I'm getting it at the health food store. It's pretty good quality. It's not even like your standard like Kroger quality, or Walmart quality. It's above that. And even that's inedible to me. Like if I had to make a meal out of that, it would be pretty tough for me, if I'm being quite honest, whether it's salted or unsalted. So you've got these guys who are just way out there eating the raw testicles, saying that this is the way that it should be, and that you shouldn't even cook your food, and that salt will accumulate in your brain and create salt crystals in your brain and give you other disorders and diseases. Which, is that true? I don't know if that's true or not, but this is their opinion on it.
No.
So that's a no. That's a hard no.
That's a hard no. That's laughable. That's why I'm kind of chuckling.
Okay.
Well, salt crystals in your brain, you say?
I'm not sure where they're getting these ideas, but when I think of evolutionarily consistent diets, that's what I really look at. How would we have eaten 100,000 years ago, 500,000 million years ago? What would we have done? We know we were using fire for at least 1 million years. We know we were using tools to kill large animals 1 million years ago. So we were already getting all this stuff that we're talking about right now. And that, again, we don't really know how quickly humans can evolve. Like it's really a guessing game. It is a theory, as you say. It's the diet is all a theory. We can't scientifically prove what's perfect. But when you look at all this evidence, it does appear to be very little plants, heavy on the animal proteins, and with some fats, lightly cooked and lightly salted, probably.
Yeah.
To your taste buds, I guess.
I imagine so. And the nitrogen and carbon isotope testing from the collagen of long bones of skeletal remains of human beings found anywhere on the planet at any time scale whatsoever that humans have existed here that we're aware of, they all agree. They all come up the same, within a 5% band, one way or the other. And they all say that human beings, up to 8,000 or so years ago, at the time of the Agrarian Revolution, where everything changed, but prior to that, for the previous 350,000 years as humans, and probably 4.5 million years prior to that as nearly human but not quite humans, we ate 80% of our energy in the form of the flesh and fat of mostly large ruminant animals, and the rest, the other 20%, was like highly fibrous, highly starch poor tubers and roots, which had to be absolutely cooked and stewed for hours and hours just to loosen them up at all. And there was no energy to speak of in that, because there was no starch like the tubers and things that we've selectively bred for these days. And that's what it was. Fact. Done. That's what positive and negative selection pressures have molded us around. For when you look at the span of human existence on the planet at 350,000 years, and you look at the 8 or so thousand years that we've been growing grains and using those for a staple in our diet instead, what that means is for you truncate the human experience on this planet down to a 24-hour period, it means we started growing grains this morning, today. So genetically, absolutely, we are obligate hypercarnivores. No two ways about it.
Yeah, we just wouldn't have had sufficient time to adapt to utilizing that source of fuel as a mainstay versus the meats that we would have evolved on and been used to eating.
Yeah. Plus, the various grasses that grow the grains and things, and the various plants that grow the various bits of the plants that we eat and stuff these days, some of us, those plants don't want us doing that.
Yeah.
They've spent their entire 13.8 billion years or so of evolution devising ways of discouraging animals from eating them, because they can't run away, fly away, dive into a pond, hide under a rock, sting you, some of them. Some plants can sting you, but that's for another day. Mostly, though, they have to sit there and take whatever, so they're rooted to the spot, and so what do? Well, they put toxins into their stems and leaves and whatever else, and roots and tubers and stuff, because precisely they don't want you eating them. So that's... if you do ignore that and you go ahead and you eat those kind of toxic things that we're not genetically designed or evolved for, you're asking for all sorts of things to occur, like, huge, life-threatening, life-changing, life-shortening autoimmune dysfunctions come splatter. That kind of thing. You know, for example. Let's talk about this one briefly because it's a very interesting area. And it takes us to the point where we have to understand. This is probably, Winston's probably someone who's read a bit of David Sinclair, maybe. Most people have heard of David Sinclair. He's the guy that's running around saying, I'm the anti-aging expert and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm the kingpin scientist. And everyone's going, oh, David Sinclair, ooh, ooh. David Sinclair is one of the most pseudoscientific, most erroneous individuals running around in science at the moment. He's a reductionist of the highest order. Reductionism is the habit in science of, the analogy is looking at an isolated cog from a gearbox, the gearbox being something that you've never seen and that no one's ever seen. And on the basis of looking at a single cog going, I can now tell you exactly every single part of this gearbox and how it works. And the analogy boils down to, David Sinclair says, if you activate mTOR, that's likely to shorten your life. There is no evidence to support that claim existing anywhere in the literature. There are no experiments on human lifespans. You'll find it very difficult to get ethics to do such a study. And as such, you know, it's just one of those things that is a theory and is not an established fact. When you look at the longevity prospects of populations of people who eat, for example, a lot of meat versus those who don't, if you actually present the data as collected without adjusting it, which is another word for fabrication, you actually find that people who eat more meat tend to actually live longer than people who eat less. Example, the health study number 2, the Adventist health study number 2, that reported a stepwise increase in mortality along with increasing meat consumption. And that's what the paper said. You read that and it says, you know, the more meat you eat, the more likely you are to die. Until you look at the data underpinning that claim and see that the actual inverse of that was true. 180 degrees out of phase with reality was what they reported. They said, oh yes, we adjusted. Well, scientists don't do that. Scientists control covariates and confounds before collecting the data. They collect the data and they report what they actually observed. That's what science is. Asking people to fill in a survey, not liking the results you get, and thus turning them on their head 180 degrees is not science. In the same way that there is no science to tell us that if you activate mTOR more than the next bloke, you're going to die sooner. So, there's that one, in a nutshell. It's just nonsense, basically. It's something that David Sinclair, for example, does to make himself important in science, to guarantee his tenure, to guarantee his chair is what it's called, his professorship, to make sure that he has a job for life, because he's so very important. He's helping humans increase their lifespans. No, he's not. He's being a reductionist. He's looking at cogs and saying, now I'm telling you all about gearboxes. I hope that kind of goes up the flagpole for people. Science is badly bastardized, and it's about money, and it's about ego. It's not about your health, mine, or anybody else's. So, there's that. Drew, what's next?
Let's talk. Let's do a basic question. Pretend like I'm a newbie carnivore for the first time. I'm not so much enjoying my meals. Let's say I want to try a purist approach for various reasons. Maybe in my personal case, if I'm going to sprinkle in a bit of personal experience here, is some of these seasonings that I've used in the past have really irritated my stomach. And even pretty simple seasonings. It seems that salt and meat really is the only thing that doesn't affect me. I can go off that a little bit, but like I said, as soon as I start introducing, let's say, too much caffeine or artificial sweeteners or whatever, diarrhea, boom. And then it creates a cycle where I'm not holding on to the food that I am eating, and then I'm not really totally in love with the food that I am consuming. So, like, even myself, I can go buy ribeye steaks, but I do get bored of those. You know, even a ribeye steak. So if I were to eat ribeye steak every day for lunch and dinner, you know, after about a week or two, I'm going to get a little tired of that. Maybe I want something else, you know?
Picanha. Picanha is the answer.
The picanha. What? The
Oh.
picanha. I'm looking this up. The picanha steaks. I need these.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They're incredible. Anywho,
Okay.
look, Drew, one of the biggest hurdles that we're dealing with here, one of the biggest problems is the misinformation that people are finding when they turn on the YouTubes or whatever their social media platform of their choosing is. And there are a bunch of people with varying degrees of apparent believability, credibility in the science of human nutrition, human physiology, whatever else, saying all sorts of things. How is Joe Public expected remotely to be able to sift through this web of bullshit to find out who it is that actually knows what they're talking about and is giving good information? You can't go on someone's credentials. I mean, certainly not if their credentials are MD. Mm-hmm. Most people don't, especially Americans for some reason, and it's just the way it is, don't seem to understand that the amount of training that an MD gets in human physiology, human nutrition, or scientific methodology is none of any of those things. Or, you know, maybe a couple of hours in their entire 5 years of professional training. Doctors are trained to make differential diagnoses of pathology and to intervene pharmacologically or surgically or both. That's it. They have no business talking about nutrition to people whatsoever by virtue of being a medical doctor. And most of them get it wrong. Some of them get it a little bit wrong. Some of them get it quite badly wrong, like Mr. Saladino. And some of them should go to prison for saying what they say, like, for example, Joel Kahn. And Milton Mills, who says we can't possibly be carnivores because we don't have sharp, pointy teeth like this. Of course, I mean, you see all the cave paintings of human beings diving headlong at woolly mammoths with their mouths open to clamp their teeth around those mammoths' throats, don't you? Oh, yes, that's right.
That's what a real carnivore would do. I was recently challenged, actually, on my channel to film every meal that I eat for 30 days, to consume every animal that I see, including mice and rodents, and make meals out of these things, and don't prepare it at all, bite into it with my teeth, consume it. I was like, what you're telling me is the same thing as me to say to you, eat every fruit that you come across, whether it's in season or out of season, eat the rind on that fruit, eat the pit of that fruit. You're not differential. Like, even a lion, when it consumes a zebra, it's not going to eat every single piece of that zebra. It's going to eat the choice pieces that it wants, unless it's way lower on the totem pole. It's going to eat what it wants, which is going to be probably that muscle meat, maybe some fat, maybe a little bite of an organ, and then it's going to walk away satisfied. And that's what these people don't understand. They just like, okay, well, if you're a carnivore, then that means you eat absolutely everything. Like, well, no, not really.
No, it doesn't. I mean, my diet, for example, is 95%, I'd guess, the muscle meats and not organs of largely ruminant animals and the associated fat that comes with that. Additional fat in the form of butter, mostly. I also take in a reasonable amount of cream, heavy cream, because I still drink coffee. You shouldn't drink coffee. It's not. I'm not saying drinking coffee is okay or ideal. It's not. Right. It's a personal choice. I'm happy to hand in my card if you want me to. Whatever. Who gives a fuck? I do that. And I even occasionally have been known to succumb to the odd plate of blueberries with cream or yogurt or something like that. I know, disgraceful behaviour on my part. But certainly I'm not pouring hundreds and hundreds of grams of carbohydrate down my stupid neck every day. Neither am I surfing for 4 hours every morning or doing weight training in the afternoon after that either. Plus I'm a deal older than Mr. Saladino is, for example, so there are differences that come in there. Back to the original question though, how do people sort through this nonsense? I really don't know. It's very, very difficult, other than obviously you binge watch my fine videos on my fine channel and pay attention to everything I say. And then if you're sensible, what you do is you refrain from making up shit and claiming that I've said things that I fucking haven't, actually. You actually listen to what I do say, because I choose my words very carefully, very deliberately on every occasion, actually. And what you'll find among those many sage words is the answer to your original question. And that's this. When you decide, I'm going to go carnivore, which is a good decision. You should absolutely go carnivore. Here's what you should not do. You shouldn't do that tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Do not change your diet markedly from what it is now, whatever that is, whether it's vegan, whether it's standard American diet, whether it's some form of ketogenic diet, whether it's Mediterranean style, whatever the hell that is. Don't just go hammer over, change overnight. Tomorrow I'm a carnivore. That is a mistake. That will mess up your microbiome. That will cause you to get the shits. That will cause you to be chronically systemically inflamed and all the problems associated with that. It will cause the gap junctions in your colon to become loosened and weak. It'll open you up to autoimmune dysfunction. It will lower your ability to absorb nutrients. It will fuck you up good. And some people worse than others, because we're all a bit individual. Some people get away with it scot-free. They are the kind of people I usually describe, Drew, as hateful bastards. Frankly. Because they can get away with just about any old shit. For a period of time. But it will catch up with you, Paul.
So let's say you want to jump in all in carnivore. Let's say you've got your freezer stocked with the highest quality cows, grass-fed, elk, everything you can imagine that would be a carnivore's dream. You've got the Redmond's real salt, which, by the way, I've tried that. It's not very good. It's got like charcoal chunks in it. Like it's rock hard. Like you're biting little rocks. Redmond's real salt. 2 thumbs down. I don't know why this is the big vibe. Yeah. But anyway, so let's say you have all that meat. You're ready to go. You've got picanha loaded to the gills. And let's say you just start to grow a little tired of it after a few weeks, a month, or whatever it is. You know, things are going good. The diarrhea has subsided, but you're losing your taste and your hunger for those foods.
Yeah.
And you're not a big old fat person who's in ketosis that's losing a bunch of weight. So you can't get away with that. You're like me. You got to eat. So what do you say to that kind of a person?
In that situation, what has probably happened, if you've upset your microbiome, which you almost certainly did to some degree by changing your diet suddenly, then your body needs to repair itself from that challenge, that issue. First of all, we need to wipe out those bacteria and that balance of bacteria that's causing the problem. It's out of whack now. They've had a civil war. It's not a peaceable existence down there. We've got a problem, Houston. One of the best ways you can reset your immune system and your microbiome and all that kind of stuff is to refrain from eating food for 72 to 96 hours or so. And at that time also, you mentioned it yourself there, Drew, your appetite drops, it goes down. That's your body telling you, we need to sort this out now. Mm-hmm. An animal that's sick and injured in the wild will not eat. Mm-hmm. They know. They inherently understand. In the same way that a human child understands that vegetables are not food. And they turn their nose up at it, and you have to train that baby and young individual. You must eat your vegetables because they're good for you, because fibre or something. Still no. Your instincts are right. They know. They understand. Also, your instinct to crave sugar is right. In the context that sugar was not available to us most of the time for the last 350,000 years. Sugar was a rare commodity, a rare treat. And as such, we took advantage of it because there is an advantage to be had from getting that easily accessible source of energy on the rare occasions that it is available. That doesn't mean it's good for us to do it every day, several times a day, and certainly not in several hundred grams a day amounts. No. So but that's kind of the short and skinny version of that one. When you don't feel like eating, my suggestion is that you listen to your body, and you don't.
Chill out, let it repair.
That's it.
Because it's easy for me to be low carb. I can get away with maybe, I don't know, the equivalent of 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrate a day. And the only reason why I would even need that, is like, for instance, if I go get a burger, right, and it's got the bun on it, like
Yeah.
that, to me, that's like the most lavish I need to do it, but it makes that meal significantly more enjoyable versus, let's say, a plate of ground beef. You know what I mean? Like that. I see people out there doing that on some of these carnivore channels. They're eating like a plate of ground beef and maybe sprinkling some real salt on it. And I'm just like, I've done that several times in the past couple of weeks. And just to be 100% honest, like it's not very appetizing. And I'll eat it, and it won't be so bad while I'm consuming it. But when I think of that meal and while I'm cooking that meal up, really, I'm not getting those tingling sensations like, oh, I can't wait to dive into this meal. It's kind of like a chore, you know. But I would imagine there's people out there, maybe they've reset, maybe they've gave that time to change, and they can't wait to dig into their bowl of ground beef. That would be ideal if I could get to there.
Yep. And you possibly would, actually, because you get to a point when you've been off the food, for example, for 3 or 4 days, that your body starts saying to you, time for some food now, Drew, and you will be hungry and stuff. I do suggest, though, if you have been fasting for several days, again, there is a sensible way of breaking that fast and a dangerous way of doing it. The sensible way is to start with something light and mostly liquid, like, for example, some bone broth or an egg drop soup or something like that. Get a few electrolytes into your system, either by salting that food, or you can use dissolved electrolytes in water if you like. That's quite important to keep things in balance that way. Wait probably 3 or 4 hours, ideally at least, before you start putting in solid food, and don't gorge in your first meal. Work back into, because your body needs a chance to wake up again, and your digestive system needs to wake up again, and all of that. So the danger is that if you suddenly whack in a huge meal after 3 or 4 days off the food, because now you're hungry, that can upset your electrolytes to the point where it can actually be dangerous, and you don't want to do that. So again, that's just another caveat. Don't be doing that. I'm not sure who that's directed to, Robert. If it's to me, no, that's not correct. I eat once a day, not every 5 hours.
I heard that
if you've heard that if you've heard that people should eat protein every 5 hours, that's also wrong. No, you don't need to be doing that at all. Once a day is ideal, actually, because it gives your body the vast majority of 24 hours to recover from the insult of taking in food, because it really is quite a challenge for the human body. It's pro-inflammatory, there's an immune response. Every time you eat food, it damages your gut, even the right food. And that all needs repairing and reversing and all of that. Plus, it's important, to my way of thinking, to eat once a day if you possibly can, because you need to take in a bolus of protein that's large enough to cause that electrolyte sparing, the one that Mr. Saladino has apparently fallen foul of. He did it wrong, basically. That was what Paul did wrong. He did it all wrong. The
Randall cycle activation.
Well, the issue that Paul seems to have suffered is electrolyte wasting at the kidneys, to the point where no amount of taking in electrolytes would keep his electrolytes up. They would just flush straight through him. His kidneys became very, very porous to electrolytes, and he couldn't hold a level of electrolytes that was indicated, and as such he was getting muscle cramping and poor sleep and all sorts of things, and palpitations and all sorts of things going on that happen when your electrolytes are out of whack. It turns out that the agent that you need to expose your kidneys to once a day on a daily basis is a small bump in your insulin. Like, not a big spike. You don't, like, when you pour hundreds and hundreds of grams of fruit down your gob, you're going to get a spike of insulin. That's bad. You don't want that. You just want that little speed bump. And what that does is it has an effect on your kidney tubules in such a way as that the electrolytes are maintained, are kept in the body. You don't flush it all out. You don't lose all your electrolytes, basically. And to get a little bump in your insulin like that, what do? You eat a bolus of protein, because that's the effect that protein has. It doesn't do that because you don't want that. That's the thing that's associated with completely disordered carbohydrate metabolism. That's the thing that's associated with the diabetes and all of that. Just that thing there is what you're after, and this protein that does that. Unless you're not eating enough protein. Now, enough protein to cause that to happen, that's an individual amount. It's based on your body size, your gender, the time of year, your activity levels. So in Paul's case, surfing every morning for 4 hours and then doing weights in the afternoon as well, he's going to need more protein. He's also larger than I am, for example. His body size is quite a bit more. I would suggest that Paul, I don't know what he weighs, but maybe he's somewhere between 165 and 180, I'm guessing. I'm, at baseline, when I'm not carrying extra fat, I'm 135 pounds. So I'm going to need less protein than Paul, for example. So that's what he did wrong. He did not consume enough protein, and then he turned around and blamed not consuming carbohydrates for the problem that he experienced. Sure, eating a bunch of carbohydrates will stop him from wasting the electrolytes and solve that problem, you bet. Of course it will. But it also subjects him to the problems of spiking insulin, which you don't want or need, and the problems associated with taking in fructose, which is the worst kind of carbohydrate you can possibly consume because of its effect on the liver and triacylglycerides in the blood, for example, and all of that. And he will pay the price for that, irrespective of his activity. At some point it will catch up.
And the science on fructose damage is ironclad, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Like that is well demonstrated, I guess, double-blind trials. Like we have the best forms of science on this particular topic, right?
It's still reductionist. It is still reductionist, and I know I was bagging reductionism earlier with David Sinclair, and rightly so. However, this is cause and effect. Fructose does cause tissue damage, cause and effect, absolutely. What we can't do ethically is put a bunch of human beings in a lab, give some of them fructose and some of them not, and see which ones get messed up by the fructose, because that's not ethical. We can't do that. That doesn't mean that the inference that we've got about fructose isn't strong. It is strong, as opposed to the inferences that we have about things like meat and cancer. Piss weak at best. Really weak, to the point where the difference between meat eaters and non-meat eaters is so close to zero that any one private individual living anywhere in the world over a 100-year lifespan cannot necessarily detect a difference in their risk. So that's a completely different kettle of fish. And saying it's the same thing is just ignorant. It's not the same thing at all. So you're quite right. We have good science on fructose and tissue damage and organ system damage and all of that, yes. Yeah. What are people doing in the chat while we're waffling on about stuff and things? Still talking about macro levels and stuff, whether it's by weight or by calories. Don't get me started on calories, boys and girls. Ted will get cross. He'll say, bollocks! And stuff, won't he? We can't be having talk about calories. Calories are heat. What you mean is effective energy, and that's not measured by calories, by anyone who actually knows what they're doing and who wants an accurate view of how much energy effectively actually is in a foodstuff. Because measurement of heat won't do it. It's hugely inaccurate, in fact.
Bart, what's your dairy intake these days? I know you mentioned butter.
Yeah, my dairy intake is butter and yogurt with my blueberries. I know, hand in my card. And cream in my coffee. I can't have milk because of lactose. I'm one of those that can't do lactose, although I can do Greek yogurt unsweetened.
What happens if you drink milk?
I get a reaction to the lactose. It gives me the shits. It gives me
Like
cramping and
immediately, like with it.
within an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have the same issue to raw egg white.
Okay.
Cooked, no, fine. Raw egg white, no good.
Okay.
It's quite common for those two things to go together in people. They're quite similar issues for some reason, even though one's a reaction to a sugar and the other seems to be a reaction to a protein.
So I do use butter, and I don't find any issue with it because the quantity is so small. But in regards to dairy, I love dairy. I love milk, whole milk. I've drank it my whole life. I never had any reaction to it, so I don't think I'm lactose intolerant in any way. But the problem for me is when I'm trying to consume a carnivore way of eating, because there's no fiber, there's nothing really moving through my system quickly. So if I do consume a lot of milk, it will constipate me to the point where like I've considered going to the doctor's office to help with the removal of that, if you know what I'm saying. So it can be brutal, and I don't know if there's anybody out there in the chat, like that's the downside to being not lactose intolerant, where you can actually consume dairy and consume milk. You just think you're good to go. You're drinking raw milk all day long thinking it's fine, and then you're just completely plugged up because that will be the one thing where I'll say is, if I were to consume fiber, then it would pass through me without any issues, because there would be a lot more to leave and to go through. It wouldn't have time to like coagulate in there. You know what I'm saying? And someone said eat more fat. I'm telling you, that's not the problem. That's not the problem. Yeah. It has too much time in there to just turn into a brick, and it becomes a big problem. So careful out there with your milk, people, if you're going to be eating 100% carnivore.
Yeah, and then others like Luke, for example, will absolutely swear by dairy and milk and stuff. Great.
I wish.
There are differences between individuals in terms of what's optimal. They are minor differences. While some people will swear by dairy, others will say, no, absolutely not for me. I'm somewhere in the middle. It sounds like you're somewhere in the middle as well, Drew.
Yeah.
Yes, quite right to Lisa P. Thank you for the reminder there. People need to understand that studies show the single most likely cause of late night visits from Lord Professor Edward Yellow Ted, in the dark of night is not hitting the like button. If you don't want to visit from Ted in a dark alley, you know what to do. Hit the like button, basically. Yeah, it's harping back to Nick Hebert again. Yep. It's a well-known strategy, either issue or accept a challenge from myself for debate, and then turn around and run away with shit in your pants and make an excuse not to do it, and then claim that it's me that ran away.
I mean, I think you're getting a lot of traction out here, Bart. Like you've got I saw your interview with Anthony Chafee. I thought that was very good. He was really relying on you for a lot of expertise on questions that he had for you in regards to specific mechanisms in the body and stuff like that, which you're able to pull out of your head on a whim, which is crazy to me. So like you have the respect of these people who are gaining a lot of traction. The channel's obviously growing. These people can't run away from you forever because when you were much smaller, it's like, oh, well, that small guy making the rants over there, getting blocked by YouTube, let him deal with that. But you've sort of gotten above that wave now, and so they have to deal with you. And you're not somebody who they're going to want to go up against, because it's going to be very tough for them to BS their way through that kind of a debate.
Yeah. Plus, I've also nowadays, sort of 4 years into my YouTube career, I now have better strategies for dealing with people whose strategy is to try and piss me off rather than to deal, like what happened with Harley Johnson. That won't be happening again. Yeah. You will not be derailing me by just behaving in a way that's going to piss me off. I'm going to stick to the facts and to the science, and that will be to your downfall, any of you clowns who actually want to front. So the only way they can save face is to not front and then claim it's me that's scared of them. Well, I'm not. I'll debate anybody right now, this minute, if you want. Well, not this minute, because I'm talking to Drew and that's much more fun, but you know what I mean. Twice on Sundays is what I mean. Whatever.
Yeah, I think that's why this debate keeps going on, is because people who they have kind of shaky beliefs and shaky studies to stand on, but sound good in a marketing sense. They don't want that to be exposed. They don't want to have to be completely flat on their face, smoked by somebody like yourself who completely lays it out. Hey, that study that you sit there and quote is no good for this and this and this reason. And anybody logical who's watching that is going to be like, oh yeah, that does make sense. And then it's done. Like their whole facade is done. So they'd rather just ignore you and continue on their little path. And obviously they're probably making money or having some kind of notoriety from it. You know, social media clout is the only thing that matters in 2022 these days. So like that pays them to dodge you and also to make drama out of it, you know, to say that you ran away from them. Like people love talking about this. That's like the best thing. And then their little followers, oh, you're so powerful. Bart ran away from you. Yeah. Everybody's scared of him, but he's scared of you. Oh my God. Huh. Sign my book.
Yes, that's it. Yes, exactly. Wondering what your stance on blood CO2 concentration and its purported positive correlation with parasympathetic activation is. My N=1 shows approximately 80% reduction in atopic dermatitis in the last month. Very good. I'm glad that you have had some relief from your atopic dermatitis. However, I would suggest that its connection in a cause and effect way to carbon dioxide concentration in your blood will be almost none at all, because the difference in your blood carbon dioxide concentration from moment to moment, day to day, time to time, whether you're asleep, awake, or even exercising at maximal volitional level, is almost none. It's highly controlled, it's highly buffered. Quite why you're appending CO2 as the cause of anything, not quite sure there, Dex. You've probably read some reductionist nonsense from someone who that's their thing, I would imagine, and they've sounded to you to be credible in some way, and that's what happens. People in general, you know, how can you be expected as members of the public who don't have a high level of training in science to deal with these things and to see what's bullshit and what isn't? So yes, active relaxation is a great thing. You may also have seen some Wim Hof stuff there on that as well, by the sounds of it, by the look of it. Yeah. Now, your CO2 concentration is remarkably stable at all times, and it's very, very unlikely to affect your health in any way, unless it gets either too high or too low, which you will know about immediately.
So are we calling BS on the breath coaches out there, Bart? The people who literally teach seminars on how to breathe and how to breathe better and just breathe?
Breathing better can have a number of effects physiologically and psychologically, so I'm not deriding that. However, what I'm saying is the cause and effect of any benefit you may or may not see is almost certainly nothing to do with carbon dioxide.
Got you. Okay.
That's the mechanism of action is not being correctly ascribed if people are saying it's carbon dioxide, because as I say, your carbon dioxide level does not change hugely in your blood.
So it's something else.
Something else. If there is a benefit,
right,
it's likely to be something else in my not very humble opinion. Yeah. A lot of people say I'm arrogant and have said so for quite some time. What you need to understand, people, is arrogant. If you look in the dictionary, it says that it's someone who is inappropriately confident in themselves. There is nothing inappropriate about my confidence in my ability to deal with what is scientifically valid and what is bullshit. And the fact that I say so unequivocally and am happy to have an opinion and hold it very strongly doesn't make me arrogant. Arrogant is only possible if I'm inappropriately confident, which I'm not. And anyone that disagrees with me is indulging in hate speech. That's the definition here. If you disagree with me, that's hate speech. So, there you go. A lot of people also say you delete a lot of comments on your YouTube comment section. I do occasionally. I do nuke a few comments. Mostly, to be honest with you, it's people who spent clearly, upwards of an hour probably typing out this great long tirade, whatever, and put all this effort into it, and I go, nah, nothing to do with free speech or not agree. I believe in free speech, absolutely. Stand up on a soapbox on the corner and say whatever you want, but not on my channel, Sunshine.
I was actually in the middle of responding to somebody on one of your recent videos, and I tried to post my comment to them, and the comment was deleted before I could get to their comment.
Right.
So
So
it killed
either
both of us.
there you go. There you go. So either it's me, or it's one of my mods that's done that, or more often actually than either of those two, because we actually, between myself and the mods, we don't nuke that many comments. Actually, there's only really a few things that's absolutely unacceptable here, and we will nuke you for it. It's usually actually YouTube that's doing it unilaterally without my permission or any of the other mods. They just, nah, we're not having that. We're not
Yeah, it
having
never
that.
shows up. Yeah, people don't realize
Yeah.
that that happens all the time.
Yeah, and then they blame me for it. That's actually usually not me. I do absolutely nuke one or two comments here and there. I'm not saying I don't, but the number that have been disappearing, even like, because like as Drew said, my channel now suddenly has a bit more traction, and more people are watching it, so more people are commenting, more of whom are indulging in hate speech, and a lot of those reactions from people are actually disappearing, and a lot of that's not me. But anyway, that's for another day. Yeah. Yes. All right, boys and girls, questions for DrewMorg, questions for me. Yeah, it's been good. Attendance has been good today, which has been, even
Good
though we had to
attendance.
change to the stream to another stream, the message got through, so that was good. Yep.
All of my selfish questions for Bart have been answered at this point.
All right.
I'm glad I got the picanha steak to go hunt down. Now I'm gonna go find this.
Yes.
But
There's a reference to our mate again.
the comb splatter. If anybody wants to know anything, I mean, I was vegan 4.5 years. I have recently, gone way off the rails, almost as an experiment. I was eating ice cream every single night after dinner. Really good ice cream too. I love it. I still have some in the fridge, or the freezer, I guess. But it was very noticeable because I was eating this stuff, and then I started eating more and more and more of it on purpose, just to see how much I could really get away with. I wasn't gaining any fat or gaining much. Really, nothing was happening on that front. But after about 4 or 5 days of eating it right after dinner, sometimes I would take the first couple bites of it, and I would feel very nauseous. And I actually have had to completely just be like, I cannot eat this physically. I will throw up if I continue to eat this ice cream. So I just have to put it away and feel actually pretty sick for a little bit. I don't know what that mechanism is or what's happening there, but clearly those, you can only get away with those things for so long,
Yeah. Might be
just
another
enough time for you to become addicted to it. And then,
another example of your body saying, Drew, don't do that.
yeah,
Maybe in some way. Cool. All right, Bruce Fisher. Do I need 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to put on muscle? That seems to be a rule of thumb that's bandied about quite a bit as a starting point. You will need to dial in your sweet spot for you individually based on your age and stage, the time of year, your activity level particularly. I'm going to assume you're a man, because Bruce would be a funny name if you weren't. So, if that makes me a bigot, fine, for assuming your gender identity. Also being 6 foot tall and 170 pounds seems to point me towards you're likely to be a man. So that'll have an impact, your gender, if there is such a thing in today's world. Do genders exist, Drew, or is it just an imagination of ours?
that's a question for the ages,
it is. Or the ageists.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I'm considering a move to Oklahoma because I want to be around people who, it's a little bit simpler culture there. Things are more black and white.
Yes.
It's more of a conservative Christian culture. You probably aren't familiar with the layout of all these places, but these are things that people like myself who are born and raised in Southern California have to now consider because the way that things are going here. I mean, we've got homeless and we've got vendors on corners in our neighborhoods now that we never had before. It's getting out of control. And kind of going back to the whole gender situation, that just keeps getting more and more ridiculous around these parts. So very, very difficult question to answer if you're from here. If I were to work for a big company, let's say a big, a big gaming company that's here, or let's say Logitech, who, make all the mice and everything. These companies have very, very in-depth gender programs that they force you to go through. And if you fail those tests, you can be fired. And if you say any bad things around work, you can be fired. And
exactly.
it's very dangerous.
Yes. You only need to do
Luckily,
this
my
once a
company's
week. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Drew, has the live streaming bug bitten you again today? I know you've been away for a couple of years from doing live streaming, from being a YouTube influencer per se, doing other things,
Yep.
having an actual life in the real world.
Yep.
That's something that I'm yet to experience in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I've been fully engrossed in doing all of. It's actually a full-time job and then some, keeping your head above water in this game.
100%. Yeah.
But I mean, like in the past, a lot of people won't know this, but in the past, one of the things that I love about Drew, and one of the things that he has a great ability in, is in the networking with people and getting people to the table. For example, through Drew in the last 4 years, I've been able to have a crack at Harley Johnson, otherwise known as Durian Rider.
Who, by the way, has asked me multiple times to come back on the show with you. By the way,
oh, well, hook it up, because I'll
it would probably be the first one. We'd have to just go right into that.
Yeah, given another opportunity, I would deal with him differently than I did that time, and he will end up regretting it. He will rue the day. The thing that got him out of, because basically what was happening was he was being embarrassed, totally, and the only way he could stop it was to piss me off and drag me down to his level. So that won't be happening again. So there's that one. Who else have we spoken to together? Klaus from Plant-Based News. We spoke to Klaus for a couple of hours one day. That was good.
That was a really good one. Yeah.
I'd do that again in a heartbeat.
He would never come on the show again, though. There's no way. A lot of people, I have Paul Saladino's phone number, or at least before he moved to Costa Rica, I was able to talk to him a little bit. But
yeah,
I was never able to.
I doubt he wants to talk to me, Drew.
No, he should. See, that's the thing, is what would really get his credibility back. I've also noticed that he has no collabs with Anthony Chafee either, who kind of calls him out pretty hardcore as well.
Yeah.
And nobody has really done that. Nobody on the Carnivore team has really called out Paul Saladino, except until you came along, until Anthony Chafee started saying stuff.
I think it's because he's got a couple of 100,000 subs now.
Yeah.
And that makes him kind of untouchable in some people's eyes.
Yeah,
he's
maybe.
not untouchable. He's not untouchable
Well,
at all.
back when I was trying to get him roped in, he was still a relative nobody, because he knew some of my friends here in Southern California, and he would come travel through here for certain things, and they knew him, and he agreed to come on my show, but I could just never get him lined up. So I don't know if that was intentional or what, but I was never able to get him on. There's a few other people that I was trying to line up. Vegan Gains has actually been on my show as well too, but for a very short period of time. It was very impromptu. He came in at the end of one episode. He just talked a bunch of crap. He was also dual live streaming on his end, doing his little antics over there. I'm sure his little audience was typing away, get him, Richard.
Get him, Richard. Dude, and he's going, hey, guys, but this is Canadian flip-top head thing that they've got.
Yep. See, you got to know your strengths and weaknesses. For me, for you, your strength is your studies, and you very well understand the research, what's good and what's not. You understand the scientific approach, whether it's valuable or not valuable, whatever the conclusions people are coming from, and that's your absolute strength, which is excellent. It's very needed in this area. Where I was I shunned the studies. I shunned all that stuff. I said, all I'm here to talk about is my experience. I don't care if you say anecdote is one, whatever. That's fine with me, because like I said, if you have a 1% chance to, let's say you have a 99% chance that something's going to work out for you. Okay, well, how do you know if you're 99%, or how do you know if you're the 1%? All you can do is test it on yourself. So what if you end up being the 1%? What are you going to do? Oh, there's a 99% chance this should work for me, therefore it's supposed to work for me. No, you might be the one guy. So therefore it's always going to come down to n equals 1. So that's the way that I approach it. And I was always just talking about my personal experiences. That really upset those people, because they're like, well, I can't argue, all they can do is call me a liar. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm pretty damn credible from the things that I've shared, and a lot of people there to back up the experiences. So everything I've ever said has been pretty much validated online. So, yeah. But I do like the live streaming. I don't know. I'd have to come at it from a different angle. I think, man, there's so many good carnivore influencers these days that are just completely killing it. What else is there to add to this space? It's just, at this point, you almost need to do something crazy, like how you're doing your 30-day carnivore experiment, which I wanted to ask how that's going. And those things entertain people. They bring people to the table, like you said. Day 5 update. People love that.
That kind of shit. Yeah, I did a 90 days 100% carnivore between January and March. and made a quite remarkable difference to my physique and outlook on life and everything, you would have thought that a 5% transgression against 100% carnivore, which is what I run at normally, you would have thought, well, that's, you would expect maybe a 5% decrease in your health commensurate with that. It's not. It's more like 30 to 50% for me. It's a completely unreasonable, unfair penalty for a mild transgression here and there. And I mean, as I say, really my only transgressions are blueberries, coffee, occasional grain of rice or two.
What do you get that's bad from the, like, let's break this down. Like when you drink coffee, obviously it's a personal choice, and I love caffeine too, so I'm not hating on you. I would love to find a way to be able to do this, but what happens to you when you consume coffee? Why do you feel that it's affecting you negatively?
Well, it's a toxin. For one, it's put there in the coffee bean by the coffee plant precisely to discourage animals from eating those. Caffeine will kill most insects stone dead almost immediately. That's how it's evolved. It's actually a defense against specifically insects. For humans, obviously, caffeine won't kill you stone dead on the spot, except in very, very high doses. So it actually acts as a stimulant, serendipitously. So that's the appeal for people. It's a stimulant. It gives you a buzz. It gives you some energy. It makes you feel, a certain way, and you become dependent on that a bit, and then you have to go through a withdrawal to get it out of your life, etc. For me, the single biggest thing that goes off if I drink too much coffee is my blood pressure goes through the roof. I mean, when I gave up coffee several times for several challenges at several periods for, and I just give it up, cold turkey. I don't have a problem doing that. But my blood pressure drops 20, 25 points on both ends.
So this is like a measurable, replicatable process for you.
Huge. I mean, at 20 millimeters of mercury on top and bottom end of your blood pressure. That is really very, very meaningful change clinically to your metabolic and cardiovascular health, really. Because one of the single biggest causes of cardiovascular disease, other than failure to hit the like button, is high blood pressure. So at all costs, number one, hit the like button, and number two, avoid elevated blood pressure. So get the coffee out of your life if you can. If your blood pressure is running at 120 on 60 anyway, probably not an issue for you. You'll probably get away with it for a period of time, but coffee will not extend your life. Coffee will not promote health. Coffee will not promote athletic performance. A lot of the things coffee is claimed to do, it won't. It's a choice that you make because it's an addiction to a stimulant. Let's not call it anything else other than that.
That's exactly my take on those type of things. Like, I would never tell somebody that coffee is healthy for them, but I would say, if you want to do it, cool, but just be 100% realistic about what it's doing for you. Like, if you want to be 99% carnivore, and then once a month you eat a pizza with your family on a Friday night, go for it, but don't say that is adding to the experience. Don't say that it is healthy for you in some way. Like, you don't need to justify that. That becomes weird. That's like the fruit and the honey situation going on, It's like, I want to do it, therefore I'm going to find a way in the science literature, however poor that scientific study was, to back up my my enjoyment of these foods. It doesn't need to happen. Just say that you like doing it. You don't need to.
It's just cherry picking. Yeah, absolutely cherry picking. Find a study that seems to purport at least to support what you want to say, and then splash that study up on the screen on your YouTube channel for 3 seconds without even analysing the thing remotely, if at all. There you go. My point's proven, because studies show.
Floppy bacon versus crispy bacon.
Yeah, there we go. Drew, crispy for you, is it? We can't be friends anymore. Sorry, we're done.
Floppy straight to the toilet.
Right. Let's start a war between you and I now, Drew, because we can't be friends if you have your bacon like that. To me, bacon is bendy. It's minimally cooked. Crispy bacon. What the fuck are you doing? It's destroyed. Anyway, There you go. That's a debate finished. We probably need a debate topic that has a bit more, for want of a better term, meat.
A bit more meat to it.
To chill over.
I bought some very high-end Hungarian bacon the other day, actually, and it went bad in my fridge. I didn't even get to using it, just because bacon takes so long to cook.
Sacrilege. Although some people will tell you to eat it anyway.
Yeah, that's you know. Do you remember that woman that was eating the bowls of raw meat? The Asian woman from like not Philippines, but Thailand or something like that. She was like the raw meat lady, and all she did was sit down with plates of raw meat and would just eat them with chopsticks. She was doing this like a couple of years ago. Do you remember who this was?
No, that's not one that really went across my radar.
Maybe somebody will know if they're still listening. Somebody will post the name in the chat. But I think she stopped doing that. Azra, is that who we're talking about?
Azra Conlu.
Is that who that is?
Yeah, Azra Conlu. That's who you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
But she looked extremely healthy. She liked what she was doing. But to me, like, that would not be appetizing. You know, maybe it's I don't know. Like, it's so weird how we all enjoy these things differently. And it's kind of like Chafee says, if you're not hungry enough for beef and salt, then you're probably not hungry. So that's another way to think of it too. But as I'm sitting here, I'm losing weight trying to take that approach, you know, and maybe it's weight I need to lose. I did have some fat. I mean, I'm not ripped 6% body fat, some kind of bodybuilder, you know, paper thin over my abs or something like that. So maybe some of that fat just needed to come off, and then the hunger will increase again. I don't know. It's such a weird thing to try and eat only meat and water and salt or whatever. But I do feel good eating that way. That's the thing. I have energy and I feel good, and my mind is focused. And there's a lot of other benefits to it. It's not just something you just throw away immediately, you know, just because you're a little hungry or because the food might not be so appetizing at first.
Yes, indeed. Well, because of the enthralling nature of the conversation, we've gotten vastly behind on the chat. So I do apologise for that, boys and girls. I'm normally not quite such the Harry Sopanos on the chat.
Oh yeah, take care of the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of chat in the background. We won't highlight all of it, obviously, because you and I have been chatting on while they've been chatting on, talking amongst themselves down the back of the class. Goodness me. I'll have to send Ted down there with the old horsewhip to make sure everyone's behaving down the back of class, won't I? Yes. Blah, blah, blah. Again, with the references to the hitting of the like button, lest you should suffer metabolic consequences. And also there are a couple of super chats which we should absolutely acknowledge. Goodness me, I've done a real Harry Sopanos today. So far behind, it's just crazy. I don't think Harry has ever got this far behind on a chat even, and that's saying something. Love you, Harry, by the way. You're a great bloke. But yes, we've been enthralled in it. It's just that I've missed you so dreadfully, actually, Drew.
I love you, Bart. Glad to be here.
You too.
I was looking forward to it all week.
Me too. So Australian dollars, Pacific pesos, $1.99. Thank you very much, Dex. Appreciate those. And John with the SGDs, whatever those are, Scandinavian somethings, maybe, I don't know. 5 of those, whatever they're worth, in greenbacks, I don't know, but good. Thank you for those. 2021 CAC is 1. Excellent. 2022 it's 6. Still excellent. Anything under 100 is absolutely brilliant on CAC. 20% RCA blockage at a reading of 6. That's strange. I think we should check those numbers. 2021 animal-based, June 2022 meat and water, A1C 5.7, probably slightly high, but okay. FBG 4.4, fine. Insulin 2.5, great. Blah. Any advice? Yes, it sounds like you want to consult with me about your health with all such details.
What would cause the CAC to go up in this case? If this man is, genuinely 99% carnivore or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume he's human.
Yeah.
And he's even gone more pure here in the later year.
Yeah.
So what would make that rise? I've seen other people comment on similar things on Ken Berry's channel on live chats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so what are you thinking here?
Okay. what people need to understand is that the underlying etiology of cardiovascular disease is quite complex. And the things that we know absolutely are that you have to have chronic systemic inflammation in order for it to develop. You have to have elevated blood pressure above a certain level for it to occur.
Coffee, John? Coffee? Can we get a coffee reading on you, please?
Yes, coffee might have an impact as well in terms of that. I would suggest that there is a potential issue with blood pressure there. Inflammation might be at play as well. Do you have a C-reactive protein reading, for example? That might inform us a little bit on that without being an absolute in any way. Still, if those numbers you've given us are correct, 1 versus 6, CAC scores go to 1,000. And anything under 100 is considered very, very low risk for heart disease. So why you would have a 20% blockage, in other words, a lesioning of your RCA in your heart, not sure, there's something going on in there. And I would suggest it's probably your blood pressure and a bit of inflammation.
You said no coffee, by the way.
Okay, no coffee. They are, of course, guesses, because I would really need to sit down with you for an hour and talk this through and look at more readings of more things if they're available and stuff. Something to keep an eye on, absolutely. And we really do need to check those numbers, 1 versus 6 for a 20% blockage. That would be very, very strange. There might be some kind of structural abnormality in that particular vessel, which is causing a turbulence in that vessel in such a way as to promote atherosclerosis in that spot specifically. In which case, that may well be a surgical repair. Oh, what other advice have you been given? Because clearly this is something that you must have put in front of the medical profession. What have they said to you? And yes, somebody there saying quite correctly that we're talking about Azra Conlu. Yes, we were.
Yeah, that's probably who.
I'd forgotten about Azra altogether. I don't know why. She was all the rage for a while. It's amazing how people just fade away, isn't it, Drew, and disappear?
Yes.
Sometimes for years at a time.
So it has to be done sometimes.
I guess so. Yeah.
She's actually recently posting, kind of.
Okay. I've felt like disappearing myself on more than one occasion, to be fair. But I keep coming back to it because what else is there? This is my occupation. This is my chosen route of income generation. So do feel free to super chat me all your money, boys and girls. Yes.
Go for it, guys.
Yes. The single largest cause of increasing CAC score is failure to super chat me all your money. And failure to hit the like button and stuff. Okay. All right. So we're heading towards the 2-hour mark. I usually close off after about 2 hours. I usually actually interact much more with people in the chat than I have done today. As I say, apologies for that today, but we have had a special guest with us. So I'm sure you understand.
Sorry,
Chad. I hope you've appreciated having Drew here. We have missed Drew. It's been 2 years of a Drewless existence. Maybe he's got the bug. Maybe he'll come back more regularly now. Who knows? He needs an angle, though, boys and girls. He needs a what can I do to be noticeable and different. Perhaps you could put on a military uniform and pretend to be the field marshal of some organization or something.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying your content. I've been watching a lot of Chafee, not so much Saladino. Been watching a little Sean Baker, But yeah, I've been really liking the interviews you guys have been bringing forth, and I just feel like every once in a while, sometimes the information may stagnate, and then I'll just kind of forget about it for a while. 6 months go by, 9 months go by, I come back, all of a sudden there's this new plethora of things to learn, and that's very addictive to me and very interesting to me to binge watch all this stuff, So yeah, I do appreciate being here, that's for sure. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate having you. Thanks for being here. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear unto you. The devil being His Majesty Harry Sopanos, King of Tasmania. Good to have you here, Harry. Are you live streaming today, Harry, or is it next week that you'll stream, as I can never keep up with which week you're on and which week you're off? Let us know in the chat that you'll be live streaming today. You're probably not, because it's already after the time that you would have started.
What is the
Goodness me.
CVD days, Harry?
Cardiovascular disease. Harry
Ah.
is a cardiovascular disease survivor. Yes, indeed. Good. John will do a consult. That's a good idea. You can certainly do a consult with me, and I shall tell you stuff and things and say unto you, oh yes, that's this and that and whatever else. Often it's, just best to sit down with someone face to face for an hour or so in private and go, right, let's get to the bottom of this and see if we can help you out in some way. All right, so since you're the guest, Drew, I guess you can close us off today with final words of wisdom, thoughts, encapsulate the whole situation. The world, you've been watching it from afar, I guess.
From the distance with the binoculars.
Yes, from the safety of behind your keyboard instead of in
Yes.
front of a microphone. How
Yes.
have you seen things? What's happening? Which way are we going? What do you think of the YouTube fuckery? All of that.
Yeah, YouTube's a tough place. If I were to come back, I would probably be demonetized immediately because I would want to just say whatever I want and not rely on any kind of money coming through YouTube or ad revenue. I would love super chats. Everybody loves super chats. Let's not get it twisted here. But I would have to be doing something on the side as well. And that's fine. Maybe get sponsorships or something like that. But the way I always wanted to do it was to have outside sponsorships anyways, and to maybe just pitch them on my channel. Whether they're related or unrelated to Carnivore was not something that I cared about. I would have rather done like a 30-second commercial and then gotten back to I really wanted to create almost like a radio show environment where it was like a traditional radio show that you tune in on like a station, and there's just like kind of the host does a couple commercials and then gets back to the guests. And that way you didn't have to rely on the YouTube way that they function. For instance, anytime I had Bobby's perspective on my channel, it would immediately get demonetized.
Yeah.
And so it had nothing to do with the content. It was just literally some people YouTube likes and some people they don't like. I got away with a lot personally. I don't know why. I was chosen to go into some pretty heavy topics and get away with it. I don't know. But anything with Bobby, cut. And then probably anything with Bart K. I don't know how your monetization is looking these days, but at least the super chats work. So that's cool.
I'm still monetized. I'm just penalized in terms of visibility and sub numbers and
Right,
and
the
all of
shadow
that.
ban effect.
That's it, exactly. Yes, all right. Harry is waiting for us to finish so he can go online. Sorry about that, Harry. We normally would be offline by now,
You got one more super chat here.
There was 10 or 15 minutes of pissing around at the beginning because I couldn't get online because I kept on shutting down the live stream before we could even get started. So yes, we're running a bit late. Harry's running a bit late, but Harry will be on live on his fine channel after this live stream concludes. So do go and check that out. Yes, thank you for the heads up on the super chat there. Perhaps we should promote you in the ranks of the Meat Militia, Drew. I don't know. You could be Lieutenant Colonel Drew of the Meat Militia or something.
I like that.
We'll have to get you into
maybe I'll
uniform,
just work
though.
with you. Come on the show every once in a while. That'd be easier
Awesome.
for my life.
Potentially. Yeah, or more difficult, depending which way you look at things.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll force myself to have a coffee a few times a week since I've thought it was protective of the liver. No, it doesn't really protect anything. Coffee is a toxin. It's unnecessary. There are no indications that coffee is a requirement. Except don't stand between me and the coffee in the morning. keep the gangway clear, staff. And if you see me running towards the coffee pot, for goodness sake, clear the decks. Is all I can say.
No sickness for you guys over there, Bart? From the sickness? Did you ever catch it?
Look, we had in what used to be New Zealand, which is now actually the former New Zealand. It's now the totalitarian state of Arduinistan, named after our fearless leader, Jacinda Ardern is her name. We had a grand total of somewhere under 50 fatalities. As in 50 individual people, not 50,000 or 50 people total have succumbed to that disease purportedly in its time. It really was a non-event all along in terms of its actual impact, other than the impact imposed upon us by our government.
Right.
In their response to the situation, which we can't talk about.
Right. Yeah, the world is crazy in regards to that stuff, and I hear that we're potentially, well, at least Los Angeles is. I don't live there, but they're going into a potentially mask phase again for the other new thing that you guys probably know about, the orangutan pox.
That's
So,
it. Yeah.
you know, it's a bizarre world. So what can I say?
Indeed.
Make as much money as you can, and stock your freezers with meat. I mean, what else? What other basic advice can I give? You know, try and stay healthy. Luckily, I never was afflicted with this thing. I haven't been sick in a few years. Knock on wood. You know, my brother got it pretty bad, and he's totally on the same page as me. He's like, he was a non-believer. You know, all this is garbage, nonsense. But he actually got hit with it pretty bad. I would say for like 3 weeks he was down pretty good. But as soon as he recovered, he was still like, you know, I still believe everything that I ever said, every word I ever said out of my mouth. I still believe. So, you know, that people shouldn't be forced to have to take any medications to make up for this, or, you know, be forced to do any of that stuff. I think everybody understands what I'm saying. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I never took anything myself. I never got any jabronis, and never got sick with it at all.
Good.
So,
Good.
yeah, whatever. So, maybe
Excellent.
you got a good immune system.
Very good. All right. Well, once again, Drew, thank you for your valuable time. We do appreciate it. We love you, big boy. We've missed you. Do come back to us in the world of YouTube. You're here on a more regular basis. It would be great to see you. In the meantime, staff, turn up. We will now have a singing of the national anthem to close us off. 3, 2, 1. Steak and eggs and steak. That's what you should have for breakfast. Delicious. Eggs and steak and eggs. Just making sure you heard. We got it. See you next week. Don't do anything I would. Okay, good. See ya.